Okay.
So yeah, obviously I've just started recording now, but just to start off with, really, I just like your opinion on the matter of, are we going in the right direction of, inequalities and things?
Um, I think we're going in the right direction in terms of inequality. I think, yes, I think, things like this is a completely random example, but it's the first thing that springs to mind, the
Yeah,
gender pay gap, let's say.
yeah, of
That kind
course,
of
yeah,
thing, inequality in terms of gender is definitely getting better. We're still there's more that can be done. There's always more that can be done. And I don't want to speak too broadly, or I might have nothing to say for the whole rest of the chat. But in general, I think yes, I think we're very much making progress. Obviously, I'm a man, and most gender, not all, but most, gender inequalities tend to
Mm,
be more tend to have um the women tend to get the bad end of the deal. That's the kind of
yeah,
that is the inequality there. It's
yeah, yeah,
so I'm speaking from a position of being lucky to be a man who's often more advantaged in these cases, and I maybe
yeah,
don't have as full a view. But I would say yes, in general, I think gender inequality is moving in the right direction.
yeah. I mean, I would definitely agree because it's quite, as a man, it's quite easy to look at it from a narrow-minded perspective as a man.
Yeah,
But there's when we look at obviously some work that I've tried to do is looking at the much broader picture,
sure.
and hence from doing that, I've noticed that women have so many things that that needs to be challenged, but so do men. So I think we should all do our bit to support each other, but it shouldn't be a big thing of, oh, feminist or toxic masculinity. We should just embrace each other's weaknesses and not address them as problems. We should, because they don't define us, these labels.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean that's just my stance on it, so to speak. But I would definitely agree that things are going in the right direction, definitely in terms of jobs and things like that.
Yeah.
And but I guess the question I have is when when is too much? Like how soft do we have to go?
Um, I kind of see what you're getting at. Can you give me a sort of example, perhaps?
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. So there's this whole this is a very controversial topic, but the whole Andrew Tate scenario, him
Sure.
for example. So he obviously has some quite uh, bold views,
Old fashioned,
but
sure.
old fashioned. Yeah, I'd say that's definitely the word, so to speak. He says a lot of things which are fairly disgraceful, but some things that also do make a lot of sense. But should we be letting one person and their clever marketing skills, affect our day to day life?
Um, I think that's a tricky one. I think in that case specifically, I don't know loads about him, but from what I understand, you're not going to get me and him agreeing on very much at all.
Yeah,
I think the views that he holds and expresses are outdated.
yeah,
Are this is my understanding. I always like to give people the benefit of the doubt, but
yeah.
he's and he is a criminal, right? He has been, what's the word? I can't believe I can't think of the word. It's one of the most simple words in the human language.
What,
He
arrested?
was arrested, wasn't he?
Arrested. Yeah, there
There
we
you go.
go.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah,
Well, I mean, yeah, he was arrested, and the most surprising thing for me is, who made the call? It was There's rumors to be that it was Greta Thunberg. I don't know how much truth is behind that.
well, I think the story goes, and I'm trying to remember it exactly. Yes, the story, it was well, I'm trying to think now. It was just after Christmas, wasn't it? And it was to do with they worked out by the pizza in the image, didn't they?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
but you're right, they had a sort of Twitter standoff, if you like, and I believe that's what led to the image being noticed.
yeah,
And um, and then, hey, if you're that pizza chain, you're now the most famous
yeah. I mean, that's
chain in the
definitely
country, in the
very good for
world.
business. Definitely very good for business. But I definitely agree that a lot of his views are outdated, in terms of, oh, if I come home, I want to have a coffee ready for me, those kind of things. That's
Yeah, there is no place for that, and you agree with me on that.
No, I agree with you on that. But people say relationships are 50-50, right? Which, yes, 99% of the time they are. But sometimes the partner has a bad day. I get that. But that shouldn't be your immediate response when you think of your wife. It shouldn't be, oh, she does this for me, she does that for me. That should never be the stance that you have on the person you love the most in life. But he does say some things which I can agree on, the motivational side of things, like, oh, if you want money, you can motivate yourself to do that. That I agree. But let's just keep it at that, let's not go down the route of gender. Let's just keep it at doing your little motivational quotes and things like that.
Well, it's interesting. I think you can keep things separate to a certain extent, but at the same time, and I apologize in advance for using such an extreme example. Yeah. But you could say something like, "Oh, well, I didn't like Hitler's views, but actually, he was a genius at that."
Yeah, that is very true. That is definitely a large proportion of it.
And I'm playing the devil's advocate here, and I think there are, if you look back, there are probably some people who we regard as greats in their field that are quite well known for their outdated views, but then they were maybe views of the time. Whereas maybe it's the fact that it's in this day and age. I mean, I think Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, springs to mind as someone who I believe was fairly sexist, but then he was around at a time that I suppose that was the norm, and is it his fault? And then you go into all of that. Whereas I think in this day and age, there is no excuse.
Well, I mean, sadly, the reality of things is, bad things or like bad actions, they follow you around. So like going back to that thing you said at Hitler, he was a painter. No one says, oh my God, he was the best painter ever. People say, oh, he's a terrible man, he killed so many people. People tend to weigh in the bad things rather than the good things, and that's a natural human instinct, which I get to a certain extent. But also people can't live in a bubble of, oh, I'm never going to hear something that I don't want to hear. Yes, some things he says may be very wrong, and obviously there's the whole law side of things as well, which is the whole scandal at the moment.
Well, yes.
When it's kind of silly, like Twitter tweets and things like that, it's as simple as blocking him or turning off your phone, really.
Yeah, but then you don't have to agree. I mean, let's say I said to you, you are a waste of space. I hate you. You're a horrible person, and I don't agree with anything you say. Would you then? I'm presuming you wouldn't then go, oh yeah, Jackson, yeah, he was horrible to me, but great radio presenter.
That is you got me there. That is a very good stance to have on it.
I mean, you probably wouldn't say Jackson, great radio presenter anyway, but
I mean, you do your bit, Jackson. So that's all I can. That's all I can respect that. But you know what? I totally agree with that. When he doesn't realize sometimes that these things are coming out of his mouth. He's not just like having a discussion with his mates. He's saying this on a platform where he has millions of people. So it will it's not partially the biggest problem isn't the fact that he's saying those things. It's more he has the power than the platform to change people's views.
And changing people's views is one thing and is important. And I'm not saying this is more important, but just another thing. It offends people. If you do say things like that, then those it is offensive. It's a bit like if I said to you, well, I've just given you an example. If I said that, it would offend you, right?
Yeah. No, I agree. I definitely do take that into perspective. And from my stance of things, like I can't speak for women and how that must feel because I'm not a woman, but I can obviously imagine it wouldn't be a very nice experience to be quite generalized and things like that. But this isn't Andrew Tate against the world kind of situation. There is a lot of female influencers who say degrading and like things like that against men, which they shouldn't have done. But why is it, do you think, that it's Andrew Tate in the limelight and the spotlight?
But I suppose because as I say, I don't know too much about him. I don't know how he's kind of made a name for himself, as it were. And you might be able to explain that better than me. But
Yeah.
I suppose he's kind of become an infamous person, maybe, as you say, because of kind of the reach.
Yeah.
Whereas these people you're mentioning haven't, and therefore,
Mm.
haven't had the opportunity to reach so many people and therefore offend them. I don't think it's saying that one is worse than the other, but I think you can say that one is more common than the other, and one
Yeah.
is impacting more people, even if the way it's impacting them is the same.
Yeah. No, I agree. And it's obviously when you're saying things like that, and it's almost kind of cynical marketing. It's not a pleasant way of going around things. Because obviously, do I believe he's a nice person? No. But do I believe he's evil? No. But I think he's very strategic in the way he's putting himself out there to an audience of young men and young boys, because there are people in this day and age who are struggling a lot, whether that be exam pressure, girl problems, whatever. So I would understand if he was having a discussion with people his own age, but it's more the fact that he's putting his views onto young children, because this is something that I see so commonly. Within the gay community, I fully respect their voice and things like that, but putting it onto someone else, that is a completely other story. I will respect you and your opinion, but that doesn't mean that I define myself or other people or my friends as that, because I have the respect to, they're a person. I'm not going to be, oh, that's my gay mate. That's my mate that likes Willie. Like, no, that's my mate. So yeah.
Okay. So you say he's not evil. Give me an example of someone who you'd say is.
Well,
and I've hijacked the asking the question, so I apologise for that. But just
no,
as part of the discussion,
it's no debate. It's just a discussion. So I completely do not mind. But I obviously, you've used the example with Hitler. That is a fairly obvious one. But it's not just Hitler. There are a lot
someone
of
alive today.
Someone alive today. I would personally say, and this is going to maybe a lot of people aren't going to agree with this, but Kanye West.
Oh yeah, now there's an interesting one.
Kanye West.
Yeah, and yeah, what an idiot.
What an idiot. Yeah, exactly.
But it is interesting because actually you've made a really good point that I would still say, some of his early records were great.
Yeah. I mean, I would say some of R. Kelly's songs are great, but that didn't stop him from beating women and things like that.
And of course, you can go down the Michael Jackson as well.
The Michael Jackson route as well. Well, yeah, but this kind of all links into what we've been talking about. The whole your negative actions definitely make you stand out. R. Kelly's no longer going to be he's not going to be talked about. Oh, do you remember Bump and Grind? Now they're going to look at that in a more deeper meaning. He's singing about sex, but he sexually abused so and so. So it gives you bad connotations by your actions, so to speak.
Sure.
Anyway, I mean, I don't know how far in terms of Kanye West, how he's not the be all and end all of evil. No, by all means, no. But
why do you say he's evil?
I would say that personally, just because he's supporting the rights of Nazis and things like that. Well, they don't have any rights, but he's supporting their views. And
right.
he's saying that he wants to go to Nazi rallies and things like that. And rap or R&B or whatever his music is, that is a very, very popular genre of music. And if he's now started incorporating this language into his songs and albums, what are the new generation or even existing current generations going to think of this behavior?
Yeah, that's interesting. But is that not very similar to the example before where you said it's not evil? It's kind of he's trying to he's agreeing with a group of people in this case that that discriminate against people based on. I had a really good term for it today. I can't think of the term, but factors, things about themselves that are out of their control, things like gender, race, etc. And is that not similar to what Tate's doing?
Well, yes, agreed it is, but Tate, in the language that Tate used, it's not directory in terms of hate. Like, I've never heard him say things like, oh, I don't know, oh, I hate her, blah blah blah. Whereas I've verbally heard Kanye West say, oh, Hitler was a good man. I respect things about him. Like, and if we then look at it from Tate's perspective, he is obviously very much not a pleasant man, but he does stand for, I feel like, making a change where necessary, not kind of going overboard, but he definitely, I feel, does want a kind of a place where people can have a voice. Because I can say from my experience as a man, and this might just be me, everyone has different experiences across the board, sexuality, race, gender, whatever that might be. But my experience is, whenever a woman's crying, they've got all their friends run over to them and support them. Whereas if I ever felt like I was crying in a workplace or school or college or whatever, I hold that in, because if I cry in front of a group of people will laugh.
That's interesting, and that is, and I genuinely am so sorry that is how you that is how you feel, and that is how it is. And I like to think that we're getting towards a more accepting age, and an age where people are more aware of mental health and can understand why people need support. I mean, I think if I was, to give your example, if I was really upset or sad about something, whatever, I personally feel that I could let it all out. I could cry. I could talk to someone, and I think there are charities out there who obviously, and I'm not necessarily suggesting it for you. It gets, I'm just saying, this is in extreme cases. If there really is nobody else, there are now, and certainly more than there used to be, and that is where we're really improving, that there are people who are dedicated to having you go and speak to them. There's counselling, there's charities like the Samaritans. I did some fundraising a few years back for Calm, who are I'm trying to think of the word. I mean, they're trying to prevent suicide specifically in young men. There is a lot more awareness of this thing now, and I would hope that everybody has, and I know it's not the case, I would hope that everybody has at least one friend that they feel like, even if they can do it in front of their whole group of friends, one friend that they could actually just take aside and go, look, I'm really not happy.
I mean, for me, this is obviously isn't a very positive outlook to have. I should definitely not be a pessimist, but if I felt like I needed to talk to someone, I wouldn't go and talk to someone my own age. I'd feel comfortable to talk to someone experienced and things like that. Because in my experience, this might just be me, but I feel like talking to people my own age or younger or a little bit older, it's very stigmatized. Like, oh, that happens, blah blah blah. Whereas when I talk to someone a bit older and someone who's lived life, it's so much more of a conversation which I want to put myself in. But does that mean that this generation is going to go down? Because we say that we're making all this progress, but we've taken one step forward and two steps back.
Yeah, that's an interesting angle. I mean, I'm just going to bring it back to the kind of the first thing you said, which was about that. You feel that if you were a girl, people are more supportive, I guess. They're not going to laugh at you, and I get that there is that sense of kind of, I don't know what it is, but there is that kind of more I think, again, at the risk of being, at the risk of stereotyping men here, that more kind of laddish sense of humor. Man up, which I hate. I absolutely hate that.
I despise it. I agree with you on that one.
It really winds me up. So there really is that. I wouldn't presume that that it's as easy as you think it is for all girls. I'm sure there are a lot of girls who would go through a similar experience.
Oh, 100%. I agree.
So I think maybe it's tricky. I mean, it goes back so far as well to kind of times when, yes, men were seen as kind of the stronger, more I'm struggling for words here, but were seen as kind of they had to be strong, and women were weak, and it's dreadful. But that's what it goes back to. And I don't think we've, obviously, I know we haven't fully stepped it out.
Yeah. I agree. And the name of this podcast is Uncensored Masculinity. And that's, people question me on that. And they say, oh, does that mean it's toxic masculinity? And I'm like, no, for me, I want to reach an audience where I can help, younger men or people my own age, or maybe even people older, understand that, yes, it's okay to be vulnerable and it's okay to be like that. But also for you being a man, people shouldn't attack you for that. Like if you use past hurt, which everyone experienced hurt in their life, and if you use that and channel that, when you go to the gym or whatever, like it's all about positively channeling that anger. And if that's in the form,
it's about whatever works for you. It's about whatever helps you. However you and hopefully, I'd like to hope most people aren't hurt too often. But the reality of it is that even if sometimes it's in a small way, we are. And I would and you get used to it, and you find strategies that work for you, which is hard. It's really hard. And I can also just say, thankfully, much as I've experienced sadness, I've never, off the top of my head, I've never experienced anything, I could have experienced so much worse. I haven't had any huge catastrophic events in my life, touch wood, and I'm very grateful for that. And I don't want to sound like I know what it's like if you do, because I really don't. But on my scale, I think you do find ways that work for you. Me personally, being, as I've mentioned, that radio presenter, I love music. Music is often a great way to cheer myself up. Sometimes it's rubbish. Sometimes it really I just go, shut up. But a lot of the time, it really is that mood boost. So whatever works for you.
I mean, I have one last point, because I am cautious of time, but that one last point being, is masculinity, because it's evidently back on the rise, due to many people who have a platform, that being Andrew Tate, Donald Trump, whoever that might be. Take the toxicness of the likes of Andrew Tate away from that. Is masculinity, strong, firm masculinity, standing up for being a man, is that a bad thing? Because there's so many people who come up to me and say, oh, you know what, Alfie, you shouldn't be like that. You should be more submissive. You should be more. And I'm like, well, no, why should I be how you want me to be? I'm allowed to verbalize my opinion as long as I'm not hurting others. And that's my perspective on it.
So I think to answer your question, I think yes and no, right? So I think, yes, you should be who you want to be. And yes, be either submissive and, either be really, really open and emotional or not, or wherever on that scale works for you. But I wouldn't define it as being a man, because the same goes for women. The same goes for anyone. Be as strong as you want to be. I bet there are plenty of men and plenty of women who bottle things up, and maybe for some that is the best strategy. And as you say, channel it by going to the gym or something. Going to the gym is something that evidently I've never quite mastered. But there's ways that work for everyone. But I think it's about not categorizing it as, oh, it's okay to be manly, because I don't think that is manly I don't think that should be. I don't think there is such a thing as manly and womanly in that way. It's completely up to you, and it's completely fluid.
Yeah. I mean that is a thing I definitely agree with. I tend to look at things sometimes in quite a broad-minded kind of thing, but then I then ask myself after I do that, I say, well, why am I thinking about how are others going to agree with me, or others going to like? People will always disagree with you. There will always be someone out there, whether that be on the other side of the world or 2 steps away from you. That doesn't mean that what you're saying, as long as it's appropriate and it's not racist, abusive, or anything like that, you have a right to say it. You have a right to express your opinion, as long as it's not demeaning or anything like that.
Yeah, as long as it's not going to cause offense to people, as you say, as long as it's not judging people on things about them like gender and race, etc., and sexuality and so on. As long as it's not, obviously, free speech, and we live in a country where, thankfully, that is something that is allowed. We can speak our minds, and obviously, as you say, when it comes to being, when it comes to saying hurtful things about people because of because of anything, even if it was hurtful, not for a stereotype, then obviously it's the same. But especially if it is a stereotype, because what's that got to do with it? You're making judgments on things you don't even know. So yes, I think as long as it's a bit like let's say freedom to do what we want. You can't commit burglary. There are laws. There are things that cause harm to other people, and in this case, it's hurtful comments, etc., and it's mental harm as opposed to physical harm or losing something that you love in a burglary. But it's the same. We are free, but there are obviously limits, because there have to be. Otherwise, everyone would run around burgling each other.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I definitely do agree on that. And well, I mean, all I can say to that is really obviously, thank you for being on this first episode. This is oh, I've got a message come up on my screen. What is that? Lovely. But this is the first episode, so make sure that you obviously watch the others and give me some feedback on those ones. But this is Uncensored Masculinity episode 1, and well, thank you for being on it, Jackson, and also anyone else who is listening. Jackson does Sunningdale Radio, and anyone who wants to tune into that and support Jackson, then please do so.
Can I please be really pedantic and say it's Sunning Hill Radio? And I'm so sorry,
Sunning Hill
myself already.
Sunning Hill, not Sunningdale.